Yo, what's up, fam? Welcome back to KuyaChris and Friends. I got another episode with you. It's with my dude, Jed Lee. We both go to UC Berkeley. We both went to the Philippines this summer on a global poverty and practice experience component. We work with different orgs. This is us coming together to talk about the experience, especially as Filipino Americans, Asian Americans, going back to the Philippines, seeing the conditions of working communities, urban poor communities, indigenous communities, and then our reflections after taking these courses in school about global poverty and how to do quote-unquote poverty alleviation and the issues concerning even the practice of being a first world citizen, going to quote-unquote marginalized communities and then trying to enact change, and what the repercussions or reflections or contradictions that entails. So hope you enjoy it. There's some sections that were cut out for, confidentiality purposes, but the majority of the piece is beautiful, a good reflection of the homie, and some good times. The audio is a little bit better than last time, but this is also the second podcast that I did kind of just MacGyver style, because I didn't have all the equipment that I needed. Because, mobile setups, learning how to do it properly. It's a learning process, fam. Always a student. So hope you enjoy. Please like, share, subscribe on iTunes, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, all of that. Go to KuyaChris.com. Please give me your feedback. Send me a message, IG, slide into them DMs, send a message on the Facebook page, anything to help this kind of improve. You feel me? Thank you. Peace.
My guest, Jed Lee from UC Berkeley.
Are we rolling?
Yeah?
Should I say the context of the poem, or just get into it?
Why don't you read the poem first, and then we can give a context and break down everything.
Okay. 50 years ago, I came to this land, where the sea gave me life. It nurtured me, fed me, disciplined me. Me and my boat on the water, we sailed and cast our nets. The fish came plenty. My hard work showed itself in dulong, lagi, blid, and dilis. I fed myself, I fed my family. We were content. I taught my sons, who then taught their sons. 4 generations on this land, living with the waves and breeze. The sea was our source of life, but not anymore, not since they came. They came with coal and concrete, distilling alcohol but polluting chemicals that made the sea just as drunk and unhealthy. The beating, crashing, roaring heart of the ocean, poisoned with arteries clogged full of garbage. Not since they came, with the ships boasting radar and zipper nets, and took all the fish away. Now our hard work shows itself in empty buckets but broken backs. My boat keeps rowing, the waste keeps flowing. My relationship with the sea is strained. I don't know it anymore, and it doesn't know me. Curse this horrid third party, who came colonizing our livelihoods. Now they're coming for my home, our land, our coast, our sea. After all they've done, they can't let us be.
Thanks for that. Could you tell us a little bit about where that poem came from?
Yeah, so I spent a couple days with some fisher folk in Batangas. And
with who? Who was your interpreter and stuff?
you were Christian. we spent a couple days together in Calacao, Batangas, Barangay Quezon,
yep.
And the family I stayed with, they had a large family. They all lived together in 6 different houses in this one part of the village. And I guess the patriarch, Ricardo Mandak, he's the eldest, and there's 4 generations of his family all living in this little part of the village. And he was a fisher 50 years ago, and his youngest son, who I stayed with, was a fisherman. His son was a fisherman. The youngest one is not old enough yet, but yeah, he was telling me about how like 50 years ago, like you would see fisher boats like out in the water all the time, and like it was easy to catch fish. It was like there, and it wasn't easy. I mean, it's still hard work, but they were able to without like an excessive amount of work. But now he was just like, oh, there's this one quote that would just like rip my heart out. It was like, the sea used to be a source of life, but not anymore. And I have the Tagalog translation if you wanted to read that.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how my Tagalog is. I'm a stumble, but I'll try to read it. The hard part with Tagalog, is written. It looks a certain way, but you're not really sure about the pronunciation of where the stress is, because there are different words that could mean totally different things in depending on the. Ang karagatan ay ang pinagkukunan ng buhay pero di na ngayon.
All source of life. Interesting. Pinagkukunan is like the literal translation is the sea is where you get life from. Pinagkukunan ng buhay, but not anymore. Yeah. But it does sound better as source of life. Ricardo Mandak.
Oh, yeah, I totally didn't get into why there's no more fish. So, in Calaca, there's so much industry there. Like, there's three power plants. They're gonna build a fourth one. A concrete factory, an alcohol distillery, and a steel factory, all just in, like, this small part of the area. And so that's, like, a lot of pollution. They're talking about how the alcohol distillery just dumps this brown liquid into the ocean. And so there's all that industry, and then there's these large boats on the ocean. You can see them from the shore. They're large-scale commercial fishers, and they have like these big nets, and they have sonar that can tell them where the fish are. And those people are overfishing to like meet the demands of the market. And the local fisher folk who just have boats and nets in their hands, they can't keep up. They can't compete. Yeah.
I remember we were told that before, like even in the 80s, because I know the power plant was put up in 84, the first one, right? And then they were still saying that the fishing was strong in the 90s, where you could get just a few kilos each time. But there were some times where they came back with like 2 fishes, sometimes none during our trip. Remember that one time where the son came back into the house and was like, here's a catch, when we were eating dinner with them? Yeah. And there was like literally like 3 maybe.
And they were just like this.
They were small.
This big.
Yeah. And a lot of times what they do catch is the dilis, which is just the tiny small one, like anchovy. Is that anchovy?
I don't know. But like in fishing, you're supposed to throw the small ones back, but they can't because that's all they can eat. And if they throw it back, they won't have food. So it's a rough situation.
One day, the family that I stayed with, they caught enough to sell for like 160 pesos, but that's $3, right? But that had to be split among six people.
Yeah.
Bro, imagine, like, to go, and it's not easy work. They have to go out in the morning, like 4 a.m., and then throw out the net, bring it in to the beach by hand, right? And it's just again and again.
Clean the net, wrap the net. It's a lot of work.
Can you give me some context? Tell the world why you are here in the Pilipinas and why you visited specifically.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, both Christian and I are here for the Global Poverty and Practice Minor at UC Berkeley.
Shout out!
I used to go Bears.
Number one, best public university in the world. You gotta say that, or else they'll get us. If we don't, they'll be mad at us. We'll have a fine when we go back.
So we're doing the minor, which is basically where we take a couple classes where we learn about world poverty and global systems of capitalism and inequality, basically why poverty exists, what people have tried to do about it, why none of them have ever succeeded, and after we do all those classes, we're supposed to volunteer some of our time to do a practice experience where we choose anywhere of our choice in any sector of our choice. My jam is like environmental justice and climate change. So I really wanted to do environmental justice work somewhere, and the Philippines is it's close to home because it's like where my mom is from, but also it's the third most at-risk country in the world for climate change and natural disasters.
How come?
Geographical location. And just like it's an island, it's a bunch of islands, it's pretty near the equator, and like I don't know if this is accurate, but like the typhoon triangle, and like the Philippines get hit by so many typhoons a year, and those are just typhoons. For our class, for the practice experience, we're supposed to do like research and for Wikipedia, where we research about like your area and your sector, and I wrote so much about like climate change in the Philippines and the environmental issues in the Philippines Wikipedia article, but it's just like it's so scary, man. Like for example, the Philippines, 75% of the population is like farmers, agricultural workers, and climate change is going to have a big ass impact on the agricultural sector of the Philippines. In many ways, like you have your natural disasters like typhoons and stuff, which like obviously it's going to destroy like crops and things, but you have your slow onset events like global warming and the changing of weather patterns and also rain patterns that will affect the crop yield. So with like more temperature or like this further spaced out rain or too much rain even, like you start to see a declining in the crop yield, which obviously like people start like starving and they start like having less money. And there's also a scientific study that connects the changes in the weather pattern and crop yield with civil conflict. So I think the study was done in Mindanao, but the variations in the weather and the rain and stuff actually was linked to like the increases in civil conflict because these farmers who are like already struggling, it's even more tension and stress, and they're angry and they're like worried about their families and they're probably starving too. So they join resistance movements or they like get in a fight with their neighbors, and it's just like everything is so linked.
Even reminds me of the Kidapawan massacre. It was a drought. I forgot what year, but just of recency in the last 2 or 3 years, where it was a place in Mindanao, I believe, Kidapawan, where the farmers lost all their crop and were even just rallying for government support and the social services that should be going to the community, right? And then they were fired upon, and a good number of the farmers died, right? And that's, I never thought of it that way in terms of the link with environmental issues that lead to, especially, it makes sense, especially with the context that majority of Filipinos are still in agriculture.
And it goes beyond just farming. Like Philippines is 7,136 islands, right? So there's a lot of like coastal population and lots of fisher folk, lots of like tourists, like the tourism industry, like lots of jobs from there that depend on marine ecosystems and the coast, and not even to think about like ocean level rise, sea level rise, but our coral reefs are dying, our fish are dying, and it's affecting like those ecosystems and thus those industries and businesses, and which will lead to more poverty and more just stress and trauma. So it's all linked. I can go on, but
how has it been? Okay, first I'm gonna do a little background context. All right, you said your mama is from here in the Philippines.
Yes, she is from Cebu.
She's from Cebu. Your pops is
from Taiwan.
You were born
in America.
In America. What do you label yourself as? Asian American, Taiwanese American, American, Filipino American, if we're going to go into identity politics?
That's interesting. Like, usually I take the time to explain to people when they ask, like, what are you? I'll say my dad's from Taiwan and my mom's Chinese, but grew up in the Philippines. And then they both met in America where they had me. So there's like a very multicultural like development for me, but also in like different levels and doses. Like I feel obviously like the American culture is like the biggest and most like prominent in my life probably, but that's definitely shaped by being a child of immigrants and the Chinese culture and Filipino food. So I was thinking about it. I was like, Chinese-Filipino Taiwanese-American.
Chinese-Filipino Taiwanese-American.
Yeah, but you gotta hyphen the Chinese and Filipino. But
Chinese-Filipino Taiwanese-American.
Yeah.
Chinese-Filipino Taiwanese. And wait, is Taiwanese-American hyphenated? So it's two words? Two total words, or is it all hyphenated? Chinese-American hyphenated with Taiwanese hyphenated American.
No, I think that Chinese and Filipino are together.
Chinese-Filipino.
And then Taiwanese is separate, and then American is like, like Asian American, just like at the end.
You're a mix. You're a mutt. You're like my pit bull mix.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to think about since I've been here, because my cultural background is so unique and so complicated, and there's like a lot of thoughts about language in there too.
What are your thoughts? What has it been for you? This isn't your first time though in the Philippines.
It's my first time living in the Philippines. Every time I've been before, it's been as a tourist or as with my family, and I don't think that's like. It is accurate because it is like my family's life, and like that's real and valid. But it's also not the whole picture, and I've been realizing that since I've been here, that the Philippines is so diverse, and there's so much like. It's a very diverse country. There's 130 languages just spoken in the country, and I mentioned earlier how many islands there are. There are that many different cultures for each island, and it's just really crazy. So being able to like live outside of the context of my family in the Philippines has been really eye-opening for me to just like really explore the culture and see the differences, because my family is Chinese-Filipino, and so I've had a lot of interactions with like pure Filipinos, and it's interesting to see that like difference there.
What do you see as a difference?
Lots of it has to do with like race and class, in many different ways. Like there's I see a lot of like, interpret it how you will, but like racism towards like Eastern Asians and like Chinese culture, like I've been called Jackie Chan, like I like Jackie Chan so many times. Like I look like Jackie Chan.
You do look like a younger version, a way younger version. And I was just watching the Tuxedo last night, like one of the Jackie Chan movie. Yeah, I can see it.
A lot of people have also told me that I really don't, and I don't think I do. But like there's this one girl I went to the province, and she came up to me like 6 years old, or like 11 years old, and she was like, you look like Jackie Chan, and then she was like, because your eyes are like this. And then I was like, oh, okay. That's like one example. And then another time, also related to Jackie Chan, like their coworkers who were like just like imitating like the Chinese kung fu. I was just like, oh man, like I don't know. It's not like, I don't think it's malicious, but it's still like problematic. And then even like with Chinese Filipinos, I feel like there's like a difference there where they tend to look down on Filipinos because of like social class, and like often they don't want to like mix, and like for example, when I came here to the Philippines, actually scrap that thought.
Yeah. Okay, censored. Yeah. For after the episode, remind me. Subscribe, pay $5.99 for the bonus material. I feel you though, especially in terms of like having a different perspective growing up in the U.S. and then kind of not being raised in a certain type of culture here. Probably everything you just said is just normal. It's just that's the way it is. But then now coming from an outside looking in, it's like, oh, that's I don't know if that's good. This might be problematic in this way, or whether it's from a elitist perspective, from the ones that, because arguably Chinese Filipinos have, on the whole, better socioeconomic standing than others. In terms of like what you're saying, like the full Filipino or somebody is of like darker skin like that, or like the indigenous folks like that as a whole. But it is interesting though, because it's like not necessarily a bad thing if you think of like, well, you can argue the Chinese never colonized the Philippines, right? It's not like they came here. The Philippines had a large trading history already with China before Spanish colonization, even with the other islands in the area, right? Indonesia and the Muslim communities. So it is interesting discussion though about also how you pointed out that there is kind of that culture of not mixing with certain families, right? And like keeping it as Chinese Filipino. And like and it was weird is I kind of get some positive feedback when people find out I have some Chinese. They're like, oh, you have some Chinese? Yeah, you're not full Filipino. Like that. Because in my eyes, I'm the same thing. But no one's ever called me Jackie Chan. I think my eyes are even more slanted than yours. Especially with
the hair. The hair.
Yeah, it's probably your hair too. And the glasses, I think. But as somebody who has now like seen that and stuff, what are your thoughts in terms of like coming from the US and then seeing these things as a Chinese-Filipino Taiwanese-American?
It's really interesting. There are so many ways I could take this right now.
Yeah.
But I think that a big thing is language, obviously, because I can't speak Tagalog, and I've been learning very slowly, but it's just, living in a different country where you can't understand anyone it's like very hard and very very eye-opening, because when you can't focus on content, you have to look at other things like body language, facial gestures, tone, rate, pitch, stuff like that. And also, Filipinos they use a lot of English words, and most of them do speak English, so like that's how I've been surviving. But it's just interesting. You're supposed to like look at it from a different perspective, and just I definitely have like lots of thoughts about like the culture, because I think like the Tagalog language is very friendly, very sociable, and it's like there's a lot of banter in it, and I think it's been like really interesting to see like and live in this culture here in the Philippines. And then given the context of like our being here, being in global poverty and practice, like it's so uncomfortable. What do you say? Because we're learning about and seeing people who have nothing, and just I feel like having to like live with the privilege that I'm here, like I have, and like I'm so privileged, and this being here in the Philippines really makes you like own up to a lot of it, and like look it straight in the eye, and just realize where you come from, which has been very uncomfortable and very challenging, because as an activist, as someone who cares a lot about social and environmental justice, like I really care about like these issues, but I also can't like the privilege I have is just something I'll always have. And I've been having a good time in the Philippines, and I think of that slogan, it's more fun in the Philippines, right? Which is so problematic.
I hate that slogan,
because it's just like you're flaunting your privilege because it's like cheaper here. But just thinking about like the way I've been living here and the way that I live back home, it just really makes you think about it and consider like, wow, like what do I do with like that knowledge of like that lifestyle, those things, those privileges are all at the expense of like the rest of the world. And just like, what do you do with that? And it's been something I've been thinking about a lot since being here.
What have you gotten out of in terms of what to do now? Right now that you have this certain perspective of your privilege and seeing the difference, because I've had to confront that too. Like there are times where I was like, what the fuck? I was just born into a good family, right? And then when we do these community trips, like there's no choice for any of these kids to be in an area where there's no support, where their parents have not finished high school, where their parents are struggling to make 100 pesos a day, 200, hopefully to $4, when I can go buy that meal easily, right? Buy food out here, like be in a nice air-conditioned spot like this.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
I think it tells me a lot, and it helps me understand the world like a lot more. Living in the capitalistic society that we have, like before, it's just like what could you possibly need with that much money? Like the world's richest people, and I think that like yes, there's greed for sure, but also like comfort in space and like things like AC. Those are like all luxuries that people don't have. That, you know, sometimes you're just like, oh man, I just really want AC right now, and like sometimes you don't want to give it up, right?
Yeah.
And like when you realize and know that you have all this privilege, I don't think it's effective to like give it all up or like relinquish all of it, because I mean, obviously you can't get rid of the past or change the past. So I don't know, like I don't have the answer. Because when like
maybe not for everybody, right? Like this is not what you do, this is a step by step, but how do you think it's affected or going to affect the way that you live or your perspective or even career path or what? How has this experience and like this realization and privilege in a sense affected you?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that because I'm leaving the Philippines pretty soon. I'm going back to my real life, which is like interesting to think about what I'll do with that, because I'll be going back to like America, California, where I live like a really blessed life, and just thinking about everything I've learned and experienced and felt and thought, like I've been trying to think about what to do and what changes I'll make in my life. Still figuring that out, still thinking about it. I think I'll be very grateful whenever I have like seafood. Maybe I actually won't have seafood anymore. I don't know. It's interesting to think about like the ways people can help, like socially, like being an environmentalist or eating healthier locally. Like those things are also like classes, sort of, like at times.
Like the access to eat healthier or
Yeah.
eat like cleaner, quote unquote. It's not available in those food deserts, right?
So I think what I'm thinking is that like with all this like realizations that I've had in the Philippines and before that, like the answer is not to, you know, step down to like where they are, where people in like abject poverty are. It's to do everything you can with that privilege to bring them to where you are. And that's the concept of sustainable development. And you know, we live in a world with finite resources, and there's a lot of people on this planet, so we need to think about our society and how we move that society forward in a way that prioritizes people, prioritizes the environment, and also allows for like economic growth and stuff. Like that's what we call the triple bottom line. But we have to recognize that like we're in a real crisis right now, environmentally, because of climate change, and developed countries like US, the European Union, and Japan, for example, they have to realize the responsibility they have in creating this crisis from historic CO2 emissions, and because they developed, right, that development to get where these societies are, where they are today, released so much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. It caused a lot of environmental degradation, and we need to now like respect the fact that we did that. We've hurt the environment, and there's people who are poor now in the global south, in developing countries, that didn't get the chance to like develop and are now being told, oh, like you can't develop because there's a crisis, the climate crisis. But like, no, we need to protect and safeguard the right to sustainable development and allow these people to, you know, come out of poverty, come out of development, and we need to think about how to do that sustainably. There's a lot there.
There's a lot, but after all the GPP classes, though, whenever people would talk about sustainability, there's always like it's a dirty word now because of how it has been co-opted a lot by our analysis of like philanthropy and things that have been historically the what has been marketed as the good thing to do, right? Then eventually gets co-opted by large institutions such as like the World Bank with their sustainable development goals.
Yeah.
Right? So I understand the heart and context of sustainable development. Even me, I've always wanted, even before GP, I was like, I want to enter something sustainable in terms of the community work and even business-wise, right? Like where it does not exploit. But then there's this, like, there's that phrase, right? There's no ethical consumption within capitalism, right?
Yeah. So there's the thing. Quick breakdown, like we live in a world, our beloved planet Earth, it has finite resources that have like accumulated over 100 millions of years and billions of years, and so it's limited. Like that took a lot of time and energy to grow and to like get there in the first place. And capitalism is it's based on a model of infinite growth and also profit. So we need to think about how we can create like a society that a society that isn't based on infinite growth, that can replenish itself, that isn't focused on like consumerism, materialism, because infinite growth isn't just not sustainable, and we need to think about how to get out of that.
So you're anti-capitalism.
I think there are a lot of flaws with the system that hurt a lot of people.
It does, but like, how do you get out of it? How do you actually shift a whole world? Mm-hmm. If that's like the dominant thing, and that's like the dominant socialization pattern, like of consumerism, of consumption.
Yeah.
And it's just like different levels of that. And you can have like one or two businesses that kind of shift it little by little, but it's little by little, right? Like even the beautiful co-op groceries where they end up owning, the workers have equity and are the actual decision makers in it, where it's not shareholders that benefit off labor, right, of people, but still those are out of how many Targets, right? How many Walmarts out there, right?
It's really, really daunting and depressing. Especially like, you know, not only seeing abject poverty, but my field and like my knowledge of like the climate crisis and what could very potentially happen if we don't do something about it. It's very hard to, you know, stay positive and to like think that like, oh, we'll actually make it out of this, right? But you know, another thing that I've seen is that people are so resilient and so creative, but we also need more than resilience and creativity, and like I don't have the answers to like how we'll beat it, and then also protect our planet from climate change. But we just gotta like keep hoping and we can't give up, because if we do, then that'd be really bad. But it's a lot of weight to carry, because I'm always thinking about like environmentalism and also social issues and how
do you get into environmentalism? It's interesting because I'm not, I mean, I care for an environment, but do you have another like lens that you're looking the world through in terms of, it's all environmentalism. At least the way that you've been analyzing things, especially when we were out in Batangas, right? A lot of your perspective has been more so on the environmental impacts and the contributing factors. It's very interesting to actually be on that trip with you, because I have a different perspective. Like when I analyze things, it's more so on like who are the organizing groups here, who's making money, who are the political powers at play. I rarely think on that environmental tip. So it's very interesting. How do you get into environmental?
When I was younger, I had the privilege to be in like a well-off family.
Where did you grow up?
Cupertino. Yeah, Bay Area. Go Bay. But I was able to join the Boy Scouts. And I was a Boy Scout, and I was...
You got all the patches?
Yeah, an Eagle Scout.
So wait, when an Eagle Scout, that means you've graduated from Boy Scout?
Not graduate. You graduate when you're 18, but Eagle Scout's the highest rank you can get.
Oh, and Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, when I was younger, I spent a lot of time outdoors and hiking, backpacking, seeing really beautiful wonders. And in Boy Scouts, they like teach you about like sustainability and leave no trace principles that make you like an environmentalist, like or a conservationist, right? Which is, it's different than like what I'll get to. Like it's like saving our trees and our planet and stuff like that, and keeping trash off the ground, right? So that got me into environmentalism, and then in high school, I really started getting into like social justice issues.
Where'd you go to high school?
Cupertino High School. And started getting into social justice issues like police brutality, gender equality, and things like that, because there are a lot of social issues there, and my sister was like definitely inspired me to like learn about them and talk about those issues. And then when I got to Berkeley,
Go Bears.
Go Bears. I sort of learned about the combination of the two, specifically through a group I joined called the Students of Color Environmental Collective.
Shout out.
I love
Club
them.
Rush.
Yeah. And basically, in college, I learned about the concept of environmental justice and how the issues of the environment and climate change and like trash, stuff like that you can you think it's just like nature and like the world, I guess, animals. They have a really big impact on marginalized communities, and often those issues, people of color, poor people, are generally the most impacted by these issues. So, yes, I think about everything and how it affects like our world and our environment, but also like social justice issues and environmental issues, they're one and the same. And like human rights is like an essential part to climate justice and solving the climate crisis. So yeah.
And that's why you decided to do like GPP in terms of environmentalism and coming back into the Philippines.
GPP, I've just always wanted to like make a difference and like help people. And
were your parents like activists or philanthropic and there were things like that?
No, they're not activists.
Or not activists necessarily, but like did they impart that I want to help people type of mentality? Because, for example, my mom's not an activist, but then she was very religious, so she wanted to do like medical missions and help others like that. Like, where did you get your like? Oh, I want to help others in that sense.
I don't quite know. My mom is very religious as well, and I grew up in the church, Church of the Nazarene, and a lot of like Christian values of like helping people and being moral definitely shaped me at a younger age. But I think I've always been like a pretty ambitious person, and also just like a really caring person, I feel. So I've just always wanted to like make a big difference and help others, especially more and more so now that like I am realizing, acknowledging my privilege, and I want to use that privilege to do something good and to help people. My eldest sister has been like a pretty big influence on my development and what I care about. Like at first, when I was younger, it was like the books I was reading, the media I was consuming, and then now I like really respect and appreciate her opinion on things, and like to know what she thinks about certain issues. So yeah, I think that definitely had a big impact. Like
for me, sometimes like I kind of bring home the topics that I get into, whether it be like inequality or whatever, or even analysis of media, and then I bring it to my mama, and then for the most part though, she's like, okay, enough. I'm just trying to watch TV. But it's interesting how over time, like, she's engaged, especially in terms of even talking more about police brutality and being open and aware of like, look at what's happening in the US, and especially when things pop off on the news. Like, and it is kind of sad sometimes where she would like honestly warn me about like going or dressing a certain way because that could make me look a certain way to police or to people in power positions, where like even my sister, honestly, after even Trayvon Martin and one case after another, she's like, dude, do not go out at night with your sweater like that. Why are you running out? Because I was just jog with my dog. Right? She's like, Christian, why are you running with your sweater, your hoodie, of all things, right? And I'm like, I'm with my dog. It's fine, right? But yeah, the reality is I look dark, and then they see that, and my sister is honestly worried about that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it kind of sucks. But what's interesting, at least for me, is explaining the dynamics of race to people here in the Philippines. When they ask how the U.S. is, right?
Yeah, the U.S. is so interesting. Like, when my coworkers would ask me about, like, if I've ever experienced racism in America, and to answer that question, my brain was turning. I was like, oh my God, there's so much context I need to give first. To answer the question, like, I've been really lucky in that I haven't experienced a lot of like racism, because I grew up somewhere that was like predominantly Asian, and I was like upper middle class. So I've been lucky, but there's so many people who aren't.
Yeah. And
thinking about America is so unique because it's the only country with whiteness, or like capital whiteness, TM, like
TM. Yeah. What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Yeah, so
with the trademark and
so obviously, like, anti-blackness is a thing everywhere, right? Colorism, that's a thing everywhere. But
definitely here in the Philippines, shout out, they should trademark it. The Philippines has definitely mastered colorism.
Yeah, and well, that plays a role in like America's racism. It's also different because you have the whole concept of white supremacy and the legacy of slavery and just like, you know, manifest destiny and...
No, bro, that was hundreds of years ago already, bro.
It's still going on today, and it's worse now with Trump as president and making America great again. You see the number of violent racist acts or xenophobic acts that are happening are increasing, especially under President Trump, and it's scary. And you have that whole dynamic of like super nationalistic and also like white supremacy vibes, and also thinking about how the different races and the white-black binary and how Asians fit into that spectrum, and how like Latino people fit into that spectrum, and it's really interesting to just like lay that out for people, because I've noticed here that like there's still racism, but it's different. It's, you know, than in America. Yeah.
I think here it's like more so classism mixed with the standards of colorism, because the lighter skin is associated with class. And well, I mean, historically they are, of course, like the richer ones. I mean, the Spanish colonizers, the American, like that.
I agree with that. Like, it definitely, it's more about class here, especially because the majority of the population is Filipino, right? Which you know, it's still very, very diverse, but like, you see the social classes of different Filipino groups, which is, in America, it's definitely more race and class are very intertwined, and it's so obvious.
Bro, I tweeted about this, about how whenever I speak English here, I get better treatment. Whenever I like dress a little bit nicer, like, and speak English, like, they'll, oh sir, right? Or even some women will talk to me a little bit more interested, like, oh, like a little bit, find me more attractive. And rather than if I try to speak more Tagalog, it's obvious though when I speak Tagalog. But if I get a certain tone and I can slide by, no one really like cares, or will treat me just like, oh, no, will be even stricter with me. Sometimes like the security guards and things will be strict. No, you're not allowed to go in here. No, don't do that. But if I speak English and it's like, hey, am I allowed to can I extend my time here? Things like that. I get a little bit better service. And it's interesting to see how many people resonated with that experience. It's not just me. It is a universal, not universal, I would say, but a lot of other, especially Filipino Americans, experience that and has seen that difference.
Yeah. And you even have people living in the heart of Manila, parents who are raising their kids to speak only English.
Yep.
And there are kids who have born and raised in Manila who don't know Tagalog. And
I'll be straight up, I'm calling out my brother, bro. Let's teach my fucking nephew some Tagalog, man. Like, I've been on it, even if my Tagalog's messed up, I'm at home, I'm telling my nephew, hey, what languages do you need to know? He's like, English, Filipino, like that. And I'm making sure he knows that you gotta learn Filipino because they speak to them in English. But I understand why, right? Yeah. Especially being here in the Philippines, you understand why. Because of the better treatment that you get. Because of the way that you are looked at when you can speak English here.
Yeah, remember when we were on the bus and that girl was having the phone interview?
Yes.
And she was speaking in like English voice.
Yes.
Or her like professional voice.
Yes. And then even if both parties understand Tagalog, right? Because sometimes she'd slip up and she'd be like, I don't really understand. I can't. She didn't know how to say it in English, so she just went into Tagalog and then would return into English just because that's the professional language.
Yeah. In my work office, like all of our meetings, we just had a whole office meeting today, and it was all in English. And like just like the social interactions are in Tagalog. But yeah, it reminds me of this video I watched the other day where it's about like, it was like a video about Black Americans who have a white voice. They talk white on the phone or during business settings, and they get treated better. Or they, let's say they're applying for a house. People who talk to white got more responses, got better like approval or like reception if they talked in like African American vernacular, right? So it's a similar kind of deal here, but it's just like a completely different language. Yeah.
Even with names, that's why my name looks really good on paper, Christian Joshua. But then they go to Guerrero, they're like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know about this. Like, what was he? And then I arrive looking like this with my slanted eyes. It is a church. And even all the it really annoys me. So many years, every year I come back, nothing has changed. All the whitening advertisements on TV, on the billboards, right here in QC, right by the MRT, walking from, what was that, what did we get off Kaizen Ave, I think, to the PSET office. It's just rows of billboards, snow caps, whitening pills, the glutathione, right, which was initially made to help like liver toxicity or something, but they found out that it lightens your skin and they just sold it as lightening pills. And now it's fucking popular. You can buy it right downstairs at Mercury Drug, no prescription, just to get your skin lighter. Because
it's terrible.
It's fucking it's annoying.
It's
it's sad because
not only like economically and like socially in class, but like just like the whole concept of European beauty standards. It's so damaging to like people who just don't fit in to that standard because, you know, they're like Filipino or like they're a different race and they don't have like a flat nose and they don't have blonde hair and blue eyes and stuff like that. And it's like to think that they're not pretty because they don't look a certain way, that's like glorified by the media. It's so damaging, and it can lead to like eating disorders or like plastic surgery, and it's just really sad.
It's very damaging to individual psyche, and I really believe the collective psyche of the culture of the people. Like, there is something very damaging about that, especially if we don't address it, if we don't talk about it, if we don't really try to change that and just accept it. Because I've seen like this sounds judgy, and it is kind of judgy, but it's a lot of observation. I've seen people that definitely look like me in the terms of the facial structure is definitely not European. You can tell it looks very Filipino facial structure, but has very already lightened skin from, you can tell by products. Like, it does not match the facial features of somebody who's that light skinned, and you can see layers of makeup. And it's just, and now there's even marketed for men whitening deodorant. My killy bro, I want to lighten this.
Your armpit.
Man, I'm gonna buy whitening deodorant. Like, and people do buy it.
Yeah.
Right? How messed up is that? And then what I noticed is that personally, aesthetically, when I'm in the US, I love the darker skinned aesthetic, right? But when I'm here sometimes, it's like the collective psyche starts working on me, that I also start being attracted to these Filipinos, these people who look like
the marketed beauty in terms of the lighter skin, the like Spanish features, or the more like the half mixed features. I'm like, wait, and I would be looking at them more, but I'm like, wait, but this isn't really only what I'm into, and this isn't what I'm attracted to when I'm back home in the community with like a lot of Filipino Americans, right? The look of a lot of Filipino Americans, I love their darker skin and like hit that bass swag with them hoop earrings and and shout out and cut that. I'm getting flashbacks. But here, right, there are certain standards of how you're supposed to look, and a lot of it is based on the history of Spanish and American colonization, and it's super so disappointing. But I think there are ways to change it, especially socially. Like if we're going to be talking, there's been some movements of like Magandang Moren X, like the hashtag of this lady who's like trying to promote more Moreno, and Moren X in that sense. And there are some who are proud of just being dark, but those are rare. And what sucks is that I've been to the province, to an Aita community, and some of the kids with their beautiful curly hair, dark skin, right? They were like, I don't like this. I don't like yung balat ko, my skin. They don't like it. It reaches them just because of TV, just because of like radio in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also went to the ITIS community.
Oh yeah, you did?
Yeah.
Tell me what was your trip? Where did you go?
We went to Manivelas Bataan with Adventuro, which was like a...
Adventuro.
Yeah, it's like a teach and also tour. It's like a volunteerism organization.
Volunteerism.
Which is like problematic. For sure. I definitely was very aware of that on the trip.
We need a pop tag for every development kind of thing that is problematic, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, just... It was problematic, but I still went on the trip to experience and like learn, you know. But when we did an event for like the ITIS children, and there are people in our group. The kids really like the straight hair, you know, and they're like, they're so interested and engaged, and like they thought it was better than like their own hair, you know, that was more curly, and it's just, you know, it's sad. Like everyone is beautiful. Yeah. So that trip was interesting. For me, because it was like uncomfortable, because it was like in a volunteerism setting, which I knew was very like problematic, and like, and also like I couldn't really interact with the kids because I don't know Tagalog, but it was still like a good experience, and I'm glad I went. I did the boodle fight for the first time.
Like a Mayan.
Yeah, with the banana leaves. Yeah. That was really cool. Yeah.
How has it been in the sense of like more so going on the community immersion in comparison to like tourism and family in that sense? Because for me, I would just do like framework share, like definitely before 2015 or so, I've only been exposed to like Makati life, where it's the Philippines and it's dope because everything's cheap. I can buy clothes, I can drink hella cheap and have fun, right? Until I realized, okay, it's only cheap for me.
Yeah.
Right? It's only cheap for my family because of our access to it. Whether because the jobs my parents have would be able to support me, middle class, upper middle class in that sense, right? And how has it been for you in terms of seeing that difference of class and realizing that you are of that more privileged class, while at the same time visiting communities that are
way fucking down.
Yeah. So, for all of you, we're here in Metro Manila, like the capital of the Philippines, and it's where the jobs and the money in the Philippines are. But the minimum wage in Manila, specifically Manila, is about
520, 16?
500 pesos.
500. Let's round it. Yeah.
That's $10 a day. $10 a day. Minimum wage just hit 15 in California an hour. And if you think about that, like $10 a day. If I tried to like live on $10 a day here, I don't know. Definitely not with the way I've been living here. I could not do that for sure. And which I've been thinking about. I was like, oh, like there's my privilege. There's my access to capital, and because I have money, I have access to like a Grab, like the Uber of the Philippines, or like I'm mobile because I have money. I can go to events because I have money. I can like eat a lot of food and be full because I have money. And I think.
And just for context, right? When you say you have money, it's not like you're rich in the U.S. This is like middle class. Like if you're middle class in the U.S., you could definitely do all that in terms of the worth of the money here, right? Just for context, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, poverty in America is still a real thing.
Yeah.
And that's actually something like Filipinos don't comprehend like all the time. They think America is the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
They think that if you make it to America, you're saved, and which it is true.
There's a lot of privilege.
Like there are stories of migrants who go to America or go to like other places to get work, and they really can help their families. Actually, like what is it, like 30% of the country?
10, I think. 10% of Filipinos are working as OFWs.
No. The statistic I was looking for is like, I don't even know, like 40% of the country's income is like from overseas workers, like sending money back, which is wild. And so yeah, definitely like poverty still exists. It's just on a different relative scale because America is developed.
Relative poverty, absolute poverty, GPP. Oh my god.
Yeah. So thanks for that clarification. Yeah. So I've been here, and it's just been so different. Like when I've been like in the Philippines with my family, because I'm. Like you said, like you only stayed in like Makati, which is a nice area. Whenever I go to the Philippines, it's in a vacation context. So my family's like, oh, we'll take you to the nice places. We'll show you how great the Philippines is and why it's attractive and great. But when you come to the Philippines as a tourist, you often, unless you're like searching and like looking out for it, like we are on our GPP trip, like you're not going to see it, or you might see it, but you might not experience it. You might not like actually talk or interact with the people who are in poverty. Like you might drive by the squatters and the slums, but
I would say you might not see the relationship between poverty and you as a tourist, as a consumer, as a person benefiting and experiencing a good life, right? You don't see the relationship in terms of the wage disparity, and that's why everything is cheaper. That's why I can eat in restaurants where it's hella cheap, because it's not like they're paying farmers that much, right? Yeah. I definitely, because you'll definitely see it as like street kids, especially in Manila, or people in poverty, but you probably don't get the analysis or the context of how it's exacerbated by maybe trade agreements, just like when we studied the World Bank, or where the money is going, or realizing how much foreign investment controls large corporations here, of the mining companies or factories, things like that.
McDonald's, 7-Eleven, KFC.
Yeah. Damn, bro, there's so many nice looking KFCs here in the Philippines.
What is it called? Not cultural capitalism. Maybe it's cultural capitalism.
I think it's cultural capitalism.
But yeah, it's like one time, like right after GDP went to Fukine, I was like sitting in this Wendy's and I was like, wow, this is cultural capitalism, where they make the fast food chain like homey, friendly, and very, very nice. Like, when we went to Bataan, Mariveles, Bataan, or some of the other provinces, the nicest buildings are the Jollibees or the McDonald's or the fast food chains. Like, excessively nice, absurdly nice, you know? And it's just a blatant example of how these corporations are trying to keep themselves and stay relevant. And they are, you know, it's working.
And I would add an additional analysis where it's American brands that are hyper glorified and they make it look so much nice. Because, for example, a Starbucks in the US is just a Starbucks, right? Oh, it's a Starbucks, right? A Starbucks here is like, wow, it's an American coffee shop, and look how nice the modern interior is. That's why I'm like, bruh, the design of Starbucks here, some of the shops, look like fancy ass cafes, and you don't see that in the US. Barely have nice ass Starbucks there. It's only like the nice fills, or like a nice like independent coffee shop that will have the new modern design. But here, a lot of the Starbucks are like that new modern design wood, like that.
You can see and you can see why, because these corporations who already have so much money from just being in America, all that money, they can bring it to developing countries, poorer countries, where that money goes a long way, you know, and they can buy really big, like 3-story McDonald's that are like fully furnished, gorgeous looking inside, and because they have money and because it's cheaper here, and it's just so problematic.
This is the problematic complaint episode.
Social issues.
Social issues.
Those are how like all my conversations end up happening. Like,
really,
it's like what I think about all the time, and I like talking about issues because and I like people who can also talk about issues with me. You know? So it's just I end up getting really my conversations all like get to a really sad point. It's like okay. For us to stay sane, we have to like
do something.
We have to do something about it, but also sometimes there's like we just have to ignore it right now. We have to, you know, in the activist realm, mental health is like very, very a big deal because the weight of the world's problems and just like feelings of guilt from your privilege and stuff like that, like. I find myself like sometimes consumed by just how like stressful and how like overwhelming it all is. You know? There's so much wrong with the world that it's hard to see hope and see like be happy. You know, it's like sometimes I like don't let myself be happy or be comfortable because I know that everyone else in the world has it so much worse. And like let's say I'm like enjoying a meal. It's like, oh, I can't enjoy this meal because, you know, so many people are exploited making it, right? I mean, it's not like that all the time, but sometimes like it gets really hard. So I think it's an issue that like we need to talk about more, and like especially people who are activists and like who, you know, deal with that. And especially in America where the culture is very individualistic and like there's not a lot of like
community support,
tight-knit community spaces, you know. That's been something I've also been thinking about, like in the American activists or like the privileged activists. I don't know. Because, you know, that other conversation we had, most of the activists in the world are the people experiencing the effects of poverty or environmental degradation, and they do activism because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
They have to keep their children alive. They have to survive and protect their families. But like what we're talking about, like people who lead privileged lives, who choose to go into social like activism and welfare and stuff, like they don't have to. Like I could, you know, choose a different job, but like I don't know. It's been something I've been thinking about. Like, remember that conversation about burnout?
Yeah. A lot of activists experience burnout, especially because of that whole mentality of all the weight of the world on your shoulders. Like, you gotta do something about it. And I think that's unhealthy, but I don't think it's a bad thing to feel that empathy, right? That like it forces you to like, all right, really think, what can I do now, right?
Yeah.
But then it becomes a question of how can you do something then that's effective, efficient, and healthy, sustainable. Actually, I developed this thing, sustainable activism.
Self-care.
And yeah, exactly. It's a certain amount of self-care that's needed. And man, I've even met folks who were like the director of the org that I'm at, or not director, or coordinator, one of them, like took a step back like a year or two ago and had transitioned out, and it took a year off or something, and then is going to enter another org like that. Now, like coming back. So there are those times where, yeah, it's a lot of heavy emotional stress, especially when you're directly observing or even experiencing the shit that's really just fucked up, especially when it's systematically like imposed on you, whether it's through law, corporations that hold your land, and with alongside the support of military or state power, things like that.
Yeah.
It can get very scary too, right?
It's scary, especially in countries like the Philippines, where a lot of activists are being murdered for being terrorists or like enemies of the state. And I think that says a lot. Like, activists hold a lot of weight, you know, and that is exhausting and definitely leads to burnout. And when we talk about climate justice and social movements, like, real change can only happen through the community, through community organizing, and through the masses, you know. So, like, it's good that there are people who really care a lot, but we need everybody who are privileged and who live in developed worlds to care a little more and do something about it together, you know, to collectively make a big difference to help people.
I really believe that, especially here in the Philippines, some more of the privileged folks really change necessitates alliance with a certain amount of the privileged folks, and to actually confront their own privilege, like their own social ways of like, do you know the word social?
Yeah, you taught me.
It's the grossest thing and the grossest culture, and to also think I'm social in certain ways, and I exhibit those things. Even look at the way I'm dressed, like this little button down, and I have a car to drive. I can eat at nice places in Makati, right? That's just social, right? But bro, let me share with you. I just heard a story of like, this is some social and shit, where this fool easily drives to like Tagaytay on the weekend, like let's go eat, and just to eat at a certain place in Tagaytay, and then come back, and then this fool had like 30 cars. Here in the Philippines, they'll just get rid of it because I'm tired of it. Bruh!
Oh my god.
While, on the other hand, you have... And let's bring it back to that minimum wage, 500 pesos. That's only here in Region 1 in Metro Manila. You go out to the other regions, much lower. Like,
tell them about the rice mill workers.
Oh,
I guess they already know. They follow you.
No. So I just came back right from Pandi, Bulacan, and in that Bulacan area, there's a rice mill workers. Bro, 24-hour shifts, some of them. 24-hour shifts. Okay, for those carrying bags on their head and stuff, and palay, they can get paid from like 1 peso to 2 peso a bag, right? Fucking 50 kilograms on your head, 1 peso, bro. That's 2 cents, right? And then they'll work for 2 hours loading the rice mill, so from the harvest crop to actually turn it into bigas, the rice, and then they'll rest for 2 hours, work for 2 hours, rest for 2 hours. Because it fills up, right? The mill fills up, then it has to process and go back down. They do that for 24 hours, and they'll make some on the best days. They said like 700 pesos a day. That's like $14 like that. $14 to be working a 24-hour shift. Then you have the operator, the guy actually running the rice mill operator. Wait, that's $14.
Yeah,
700. Yeah, you have the guy running the rice mill machine. He works for 24 hours straight, no sleep. Of course, he makes more money, like maybe $20 or $30 in a day, right? But that's 1,000 pesos, right? Sounds really good, right? But 24 hours, and imagine that's not every day.
Working with large machinery,
and he'll only have some of those folks. They make 700 pesos a day. That sounds more than minimum wage, but they won't have work for like 2 or 3 days. Because that's just the timing of the crop and everything. So imagine that you're putting your body on the line. People, they don't have health care, right?
No.
There's none of health care benefits.
No health care.
What the fuck is that? For 2 pesos a bag, they're not getting health care for that, and it's not in the law to that requires. There's no work laws, labor laws that protect majority of the Filipinos here, right? Compare that to some fool who can buy 30 plus cars, right? Bro, that's another level of consumerism, bro. Like, oh my god. And that's socialan. Those are people who are like probably related to politicians, family of politicians, business owners, or artistas, right? Those in the media. And I'm not saying that everyone who is upper class is like that, but from my partying days when I was social and Gonyo, shit, a lot of people are like that, right? And I wanted to exhibit those type of things before, right? To go out clubbing and look fresh with a look at my car and speak English like that. It's so disappointing, especially when you have abject poverty right in front of you. And you'll have people like giving 20 peso tip when they spend thousands on food just because that's good for them. When they can definitely afford to throw like 100 pesos, $2, and that's a big deal for tip, right? It's because it's so socialized, like the difference in terms of class. I think that's what we have to be also clear about in terms of like the way that the upper class looks at the lower class is so disappointing in terms of like very elitist, and I've seen it in my own family, to be transparent. Like even my family would sometimes say about some work, tamad lang sila, they're just lazy, right? Or like palagi late, they're always late. Bruh, have you tried to commute? Like, you have a motherfucking car.
Have you never had your own personal driver?
Oh my god. Like, have you ridden the MRT? Maybe you've tried once. You don't ride the Jeep. You don't. I have folks like out in Pasig. I had to commute the other day, and then even at 10:30, it was so full. Like on the main Shaw Boulevard, people were making sabit hanging off the end of the jeepney still. Right, 10:30 p.m. commuting home like that, and you just have that whole demographic of Conyo, social English-speaking people with not millennials and their parents, right, who go to nice places and can live very American lives. That's what I always equate it to. Like, bro, if you have a certain amount of money, you can definitely have a US aesthetic Instagram, like living here in Makati and in the Fort, Alabang, certain places where it's more well off, right? And it's kind of crazy. And I wish, though, there has to be like that solidarity from those who are privileged, upper class, to find ways to serve the people, the lower class, or those on the lower socioeconomic ladder, and be a little bit more humble in that sense, right? That's what I do appreciate when you talk about, all right, trying to assess your own privilege and see how you can serve that. If more people are like that, I think it could actually do good, right? I think that's where some of the hope is.
Yeah. That's why another interesting thing about the Philippines, like all of the college students, they have to do an OJT or an internship, like for most majors, during their senior year, and we met people who like spent 6 weeks in like the province doing research and field work, and I worked with interns who were from nearby colleges, and I think it's like we should do that something similar in the U.S. at Berkeley, but also that's sort of different where I was going with, but like GPP. Everyone should do GPP.
Yeah. This should be a marketing video for GPP.
Do global poverty practice.
How has your experience been with it? What if overall, then, just in terms of the perspective of GPP, or analyzing GPP as a class, as an experience so far? How has it been for you?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, when they like look at GDP and they're like, they take it, or they're like, oh, I want to fix poverty, right? One person taking one couple classes about poverty is not going to fix it. Like, this minor does not like make a big impact in fixing the issue of poverty. And like, there's like a lot we can get into, but I think that it's just really eye-opening, and the way we look at the world globally, while most Americans look at it individualistically, maybe just like their small friend group and stuff. I think maybe it was Chaitan, but he was like, people who do the full GPP experience, they're a really true minority in the sense that the way we think and the way we look at systems, and really just like give our heart to like this situation of society. And I think it's like it's like cool and awesome, but it's also like sometimes isolating, or like, wow, it's like not like, I don't know, just like being in America, like people don't really think about this all the time, you know, like analyze social issues or talk about it daily or work towards it. And it's just like, man, more people need to care and to be educated about these issues. But I think GPP has been great in providing one with a personal experience, to be able to be educated and just confront their privilege, you know. And obviously people in college at Berkeley have varying levels of privilege, but they're at college at the best.
At Berkeley.
Yeah,
bro,
so
let's be real.
That's privilege.
Yeah,
you know?
the hell of fucking privilege.
So I think that it's like a really good thing for me to do, like this time here that I've had in the Philippines. Like, it's been really life-changing and eye-opening and transformative. Like, I know a lot of people who say it's like the best thing they did in college. I might not say that yet, but I still have 2 years, but it's such a good thing to like have done, and it just really changed the way I think about the world and see the world. So I'm really grateful for GPP, all the professors and faculty that make it happen. Thank you, Chaitan. Thank you, Professor Talwalker, Professor Hoskosh, Professor Kadir. I think there's one more.
You know more of the names than I do. Damn, I'm bad with the names.
But
yeah, I forgot even Khalid's name. I was like, Kadir. Yeah. Shit, I'm in your class next time.
And Thursday?
I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday.
Thursday.
I forget. I don't know what I signed up for.
I mean, here in Makati, here in Manila, like, the world can get small, especially when you're, let's be honest, upper middle class here in the Philippines. Like, because you run in a certain circle, especially once we go down into age brackets, because there's always something popping. There's always like the new business, right? That the new spot to go to. And it's funny how like things just change name or like remodel, and then it's the poppin' spot again. Like even in the fort, they'll just have a different spot.
It's capitalism. Capitalism works by constantly destroying and rebuilding and giving rebirth to new systems, and reinvents itself to get that status of infinite growth and you know, constantly changing itself, you know, because it has to sell itself, because in this model people get tired real fast, you know, fast fashion, like just other trends, you know. It's just, you've seen so much change in the past 200 years. So much change.
Yeah, you can say that in 5 years. In the last 5 years,
yeah,
so much change. And even the phones, right? Phones built for planned, what's that word? Planned obsolescence, like where things are built to deteriorate so that you could buy a new one again, right? They're not built to last. They're made to just be slow, eventually to be replaced.
So that's like where the line is. Like, competition is good for society, and it technology comes out of it, inventions come out of it. But when that competition is like focused on profit and like outdoing the other, and when that creates an unequal playing ground, right? Playing field. That's where the problems start to happen, you know. That's where people start fighting to like even survive, get food, water.
I think for me, it really keyed in terms of how fucked up the process of capitalism in terms of competition. Like for me, I totally agree in terms how competition is good for human psyche, for progression, for development. But what really fucked me up was seeing the supply chain and how, they're competing, corporations are competing, right? And one will win and stuff like that. But where's the supply chain coming from? They're still getting the resources from the most marginalized communities, and they all suffer. All of these folks here in the Philippines, in the rural areas, through labor, through resource exploitation, it's only benefiting, there's good competition, but those at the top that are usually controlled by shareholders, corporations in first world countries, in the World Bank, in the United Nations that are still controlled by veto power by the 5-6 countries that are the largest imperialist countries, right? Even the UN, right? As great as the UN is, great, quote unquote, right? Still serves a lot of the interests of the ones who hold UN power,
right?
Yeah,
it's not
definitely
or those 5 nations, 6 nations that hold the power of the UN in their grasp, right? So that's what I realized. I was like, oh fuck, yeah, like I think here we, on some level, play out a caricature of American capitalism, especially in Makati, in Manila, at the expense of 90% of the Filipinos, right? Because if you really try to analyze it, a lot of this status symbols and things are American value sets, right? What products, even Ford. A Ford car here is a luxury, right?
Yeah.
In comparison to I don't give a fuck about a Ford in the US, right? Yeah, cool truck, whatever, give me that Toyota. But on some level, it's a status because it's an import. It's not a Toyota, right? Even a Subaru, things like that, different things, just status symbols of wealth, right? Going to an international school and once again, coming back to it, speaking English, right? All the repercussions of that shit. But I think that's why I'm in the search for and very supportive of people who have found the hope and who are actively doing something to address these things, right? And the beauty of it is that there are a lot. The reality is a lot of them do it out of necessity, right? But I have also met a lot of even more privileged folks out here who have put in a lot of their time to put in work for the community, right?
Definitely.
And one example, this dude from CKAD, which is Sining Kadamay, the arts org for Kadamay. His family has a good house and car, things like that, but he's putting in a lot of work for the community org, editing videos, all non-profit, no pay for him or anything, just to put out documentaries about the rice mill workers in this sense, right? Helping with that and seeing that type of relationship, especially for a local here to the Philippines who has access to more resources and is doing that. That's where I got some hope, right? Because I'm still honestly a little bit of an outsider, right? I'm only here in the summer. So I can talk a lot of shit about use our privilege and help serve the masses, but motherfucker, I'm here for 6 weeks, right? Yeah. I ain't confronting this on an everyday basis, right? So I think that's why I'm on the hunt for hope.
Definitely. That's something I'm thinking about as on Friday I'm getting on a plane.
Yeah, you're leaving, bro.
On a plane. Not quite going back to America yet, but I'm going to spend time with my family, and it's just it's going to be very different and very I just had this, entire experience, and I feel like it's different for other GPP students. We're living in a very developed part of the world.
Yes.
Or just the city.
Of the country, yeah.
Of the country, right? But to all of our GPP friends who are out in rural India or rural
Africa,
Peru,
or Latin America.
It's just I don't know. It's I think it's our experience is interesting because we're seeing both ends, right? Which is problematic, but compared to just people who are just completely in the one end, So it's something I'm really thinking about a lot of how, yes, I'm having this transformative experience and I've learned so much. How can I give back and continue to give back, and really just do the most I can with the cards I've been dealt, Still figuring it out.
Can you give me a rundown of your experience with the org, IBON, that you have been working with here for probably almost 2 months already?
Yeah, 2 months. So IBON International is...
Get it right. They'll be mad at you. This guy's been with us for 2 months.
We just had a meeting today that was talking about what IBON is and
Oh yeah?
well, sort of, yeah. Anyways, IBON International has its roots in IBON Foundation, which started during the Marcos regime in the 70s. So we've been around for 40 years-ish. And IBON Foundation does a lot of work within the Philippines, doing human rights like things and activism, while IBON International span out of that, like I think 12, 15 years ago maybe, and they look at the world globally, and they do a lot of research and publications about like the status of both the Philippines, but also the global context of many different issues like trade and development, militarism, climate justice, and these articles, they're doing a lot to inform the public of what's going on. I've talked to a lot of people who, a lot of college students who are like, yeah, I've read IBON's work in my college classes, and that's like one area we like make a difference. But also, we do a lot of trainings and give materials and information to local community partners. Like for example, the project I worked on when I was here, I created a set of 5 modules that supposed to be used for a 2 to 3 day training program for NGOs across NGO partners in 5 different countries to use to teach civilians about climate justice. Basically, lesson plan to teach people about climate justice. And when we create those materials and that information, we're allowed to disseminate it through like our partners who can use it to better the capacity and like effectiveness of different social movements and community groups. So I think IBON International's work is very necessary for like, people to be doing that research and getting that information out there, and just like being a watchdog of like what governments are doing, and how people are their rights are being violated. They also like will do like not only like global research, but they'll do projects where they'll go to communities and do research with partners, and they'll incorporate that into like the publications they produce and stuff like that.
How's your, like, what has been one of the like big takeaways for you in terms of working with this org, especially within the GPP context? Because I've seen IBON in terms of, it's been cool like to see IBON's work at some of the schools that we visited actually too. Yeah, like because I visited them last year, and then I was like, okay, they make curriculum, and then I visited a school down in Minden, and I was like, oh, it's an IBON book, and that, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
To see it. How has the experience been? Like, other than what have you done, how has it been personally?
I think it's really cool. I think a lot of the people who are in the office, they're very intelligent, and they're very just, passionate, and they care about like what they're doing. And I think they have similar politics to me, so it's been really cool to just like work with them and be surrounded by them, and just know that the work that's happening is like making an impact. It's also cool because through IBON I've been to like some events that they put on, or Yeah, events that they put on.
You go to the Bird Talks?
I haven't.
I think that,
There was one I was supposed to go to, I didn't go.
Oh, I'm telling Shaitan.
Yeah, but I think working with IBON, it's been eye-opening in many ways, like just the type of work I want to do in the future and the like environment I want to work in, but also just seeing like, because I've friended all these people on Facebook and like seeing like the type of things they post about and what they talk about and what really matters to them, and I've learned a lot from like what's happening in the Philippines and issues that I haven't like thought like that in depth about, and they've just been so friendly and welcoming as well.
So you would recommend? Is this a would recommend for other GPP folks to go with IBON?
Yeah, I think that with IBON, especially because I don't know the language, I felt like I could actually do work that was effective and that made an impact.
Why? Because a lot of the stuff
because
is in English?
I was writing in English and I could do my research and stuff in English. And while it's, not my favorite to be in an office sitting behind a computer, like I know if I tried to go into the communities and like do interview or community work, it would be very hard for me because I don't know Tagalog, and at this point in my life, so I know that there are other groups, other GPP students where like language is a big like factor in where you go and where you the experience that you have where you are. Obviously it doesn't like always stop people, and like definitely if there's a place where you're really passionate about and you don't know the language, like it'll probably work out, but there's going to be challenges there. It's going to be like isolating and difficult. But I think for me and IBON, I've been able to have like the great experience of being in the Philippines and like learning and seeing things in person, but also feel like I was doing effective work that was like actually something, because I was talking to Lorraine, who's in the Philippines, and she's telling me she's fluent Tagalog, so she was telling me her coworkers were like, yeah, if you didn't know Tagalog, we wouldn't know what to do with you. So like I would like, what if I went there, and I was like, oh, I'm ready to help, but I can't speak to anyone and I don't know how to. Yeah. So there's that. I think that's like definitely a thing. I would try to go somewhere where you know the language,
or that they can speak a lot of English,
or they can speak the English, which is like limiting your options. But it depends on what you're looking for, because and just like outside of language with GPP, don't expect to like feel like you saved the world or like feel like you made a difference. Because you didn't,
Exactly, said you didn't. Oh my god.
I mean,
you ain't gonna save the world.
You're not making a big impact. Like the people we've been working with, like there are people in my office who have been there for 20 plus years, right? And NGOs all around the world. There's been people who've been in that field for a long time. And a college student who's there for 6 weeks, not going to make a difference, Like I feel like a lot of GPP students, I don't know, I feel like we'll talk about this during 196, but they'll feel like they're not necessary. Like it wouldn't matter if they weren't in their org. That's like low-key true. obviously, like, we, as college students who've been educated in like this type of theory and education, like, we have ideas and we have different ways, but it's just like also the fact that you're an outsider, you're coming into this space. I don't know. You would have to like establish yourself before you can actually like make big changes or like make a real, because a lot of times, especially in the communities, it's about like relationships, It's not about your status or your education all the time. So yeah, I don't know.
I feel it. I think it is very important, like wake up call, and even for a lot of activists, right? Like just to be aware, like, and to have that humility that, bro, you ain't changing the world with that single thing, with your Facebook post. But I mean, it's gonna help on some level to build awareness, solidarity, if it's done correctly and if you are consistent with it. But it really comes down to joining the movements that are there, that because it's all collective action that makes the most impact, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is collective action. So maybe that post will lead you towards an organization that you can join up with and work with and collectively do something and be part of a larger movement. But I think it is very important for activists, for students, for volunteers in general to like settle down, savior. You ain't little Jesus out here saving the world, but you can support, you can contribute, you can do something.
Yeah.
Right? But just be aware that you are a speck, but make that speck worth it in that sense.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, I'd say for anyone who does GPP or who goes like on a like exposure trip or like into a different country, like sure you might like have gained a lot of experience and knowledge and information and grown and been transformed, but that doesn't matter unless you go back and unless you actually do something with that, because whether you're in a homestay or like interviews with community members, like they have given you a lot of like knowledge and like experience, and for you to take that and just return to your life, right? That's not cool. You gotta give back. You gotta take what you learned and do something. That's what I've been thinking about, and I'm trying to think about like how I'm gonna do something and how or if or when I will come back and what will that look like.
Yeah. I totally agree with you though. I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of visiting communities, taking video, and just going back to my life back in the US, posting one or two things, and then like sounding hella woke and some shit, and then the issue here is blah 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 corporation and blah 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 issue paying paid this amount of money, blah blah blah, and then going back to school and like work and everything. Yeah. But I really believe like what you were saying, them giving that knowledge, and it's not just knowledge or information or lessons, it's their lives.
Their life.
They're giving you their life through the story, right? But I think that's where like, okay, to have some humility and some patience with yourself that, okay, you ain't gonna be savior overnight, but also have it be locally led, like asking them, how can I help, right? And honestly, a lot of the folks, communities that I visited, a lot of them just share our story. Just let people know what's going on here, and maximize the effort to kind of be a multiplying effect, right? Mm-hmm. Don't speak for them, but let them be a voice that amplifies theirs.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where it's important to really be a student of the folks that you visit.
Yeah. On that note, for sharing your stories, like that's something I've been doing recently. I've been posting a lot on Instagram and Facebook about that trip to Batangas with the fisher folk and other people and things I've met in the Philippines, and to people out there who don't have the opportunity to go on like a trip like this or something like that. Like your likes are great, but a share is much better, you know?
Some real talk right here.
Yeah,
I didn't know where this was going.
It's just like,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's like a like is good, yeah, a comment, sure, but like a share just gets the word out much farther, you know? It spreads it out, and it's such a small thing, but it would make a bigger difference in terms of impact, I guess. But we have to know that likes and hashtags aren't gonna solve anything unless we pair that with action, and we pair that with conversation and discussion about how do we use our privilege and how do we want to change our society. Because if we don't, if we just oh, that's so terrible, that's sad, and move on with our lives, we're being complicit, and we're, it's, that doesn't mean anything.
So he's saying share his shit, fam. Share this episode, subscribe, give some time for GPP, and roll and come back.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. But I agree. I think it's like one of those tools, right? Like social media is a tool that we've been learning, and it's been evolving with us too, as users. And what then does it provide? How can we use it? Because it's kind of we're learning alongside its evolution, and then finding ways to use it more effectively in that sense for actual real tangible change for whatever issue or whatever community we want to serve.
I think social media is really interesting in that it's definitely allowed for a lot of individuality. In the provinces, you have the kids who are living in poverty, but they are able to have a Facebook account.
Yeah.
And they're able to post about and pictures of themselves or their thoughts, and that's great, the way that individuality is able to be developed through social media, but also we can't just let it just be individualism. Share a post about the world or social issues sometimes. It's not gonna hurt your aesthetic or yeah.
Real talk right here, fam. But no, man, the IG aesthetic has to match with the color scheme.
Yeah, it's gonna mess up my feed.
Oh my god.
The whole point about social media is to show other people who you are and who you want to display of yourself, but it's also a community. The benefits of social media where you're able to keep relationships that you wouldn't have normally, or you're able to at least follow someone's life and what they're up to. That's great, and there's a community. I've noticed people who post more on social media, I feel I know them better. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's post about what you care about, and I think not calling anyone out, but if you only post about yourself, then isn't that showing the world what you care about?
That's a good point of view.
But damn, some people just be posting ass all day on some Instagram model shit. So, hey, they be making money. That's their grind. That's their hustle. Some folks be on that for their marketing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand though. But when you were sharing, bruh, there's this one lady that I don't know how, I don't know if I even met her in person. We just follow each other. And then I've followed her like throughout life, like the last 3 years and stuff. She met some guy, they were dating, they end up having a kid. The kid is what, like 2-3 years old now? And I don't think I've met these people, but then we just follow each other. Like, and she followed me for the same amount of time. Like, I wonder, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, this social media, but I definitely can see it like have its impact though, especially on I feel the impact on me. Sometimes I end up scrolling too much. Like, I've had fights in relationships because of which shit I like or what I comment on. And then one time I commented some fire emoji and the Philippine flag, and I got in trouble because it was like girls' photos. I was like, those are like my sisters from high school. Like, but in just context of what it looks like, it makes an issue. Like, at the same time, it's a great connection. I've met folks that I've had on the podcast just because of social media, connecting and then messaging, things like that. I met the last dude, Nico, all over social media first before I saw him in person just by chance, like that. Things like that. I'm like, what the fuck? Hey, I know you, like that, on that tip. So it has those connections.
Oh, did you? Random, but did you know that Lauren, she was following you for several months before I introduced you?
Yeah, she told me. She was like, hey, Will, I follow you on Twitter and stuff like that. I'm like, oh shit, I hope you haven't seen the like the 2 a.m. like thirsty shit that I post and delete after. But yeah, she said she liked some of the more woke stuff. I hate the term woke, by the way. I'm not woke.
Yeah, so I think it's like we recognize that social media has a lot of good, but it also has a lot of bad, and capitalism is a similar way. Like, there's good things about the system, but there's also a lot of bad, and it's just getting worse. And we need to think about the things in our lives that are like that, and we need to think about how we can like piece together like all the good things and like all the different things and make something new.
Word. So I like asking this before we close up this little section of 3 pieces of advice based on what you've shared, your trajectory from like high school, from your Eagle Scout days into environmentalism, and even shifting now towards like this change in perspective, finally being with communities here in the Philippines. What are 3 pieces of advice that you would give to the younger Jed Lee?
The younger Jed Lee?
Yeah. Oh, maybe that budding environmentalist in a sense, and like getting into through high school or college.
I'd say keep an open mind. Take risks, and just learn as much as you can. Which is, I don't have anything better, so
Why did those come up in mind? Did you not take as much risks before? Or did you not have an open mind? Or is it just that those are what's brought you to where you're at?
Those are what have brought me to what I'm at. Like, I think having an open mind and wanting to learn about the world I live in and who I am and just the things that are affecting me and shaping me have brought me where I am, and like what I care about, what I know about, and then I think it's just a good advice in general to take risks, because risks are how you're gonna get places, how you're gonna advance. And like, yes, you could play it safe and still like keep moving forward in life, but it's just like the really like high points or low points are the things that are gonna like shape you, when people are comfortable, right? It's a good life, right? And being comfortable is good, but also your growth is stagnating because growth only comes out of uncomfortability. Or like real transformative growth, Like this 2 months has been really uncomfortable, but I've learned so much and I've been transformed in ways that I am still processing. So I think that yes, you can be scared of the consequences, or if things don't work out, or if you might look bad, I guess. I don't know, but I just take a risk, whatever it may be, right? And yes, you might fail, but yes, you might succeed, and that will be so much. You'll thank yourself for it after, I feel yeah, it's just you hear stories oh, I'm so glad I decided to take that class, or to go on that date, or I don't know, move to somewhere else. I get yeah, I feel those are what people appreciate, the big jumps and going for it, so yeah, go for it, whatever it is.
Take your risk. Don't get comfortable. Do you have any...
The comfortability is good, but don't stay comfortable.
Don't stay comfortable. I had on my vision board at home, I think it was don't get comfortable. Don't stay comfortable. Something, don't be comfortable. Or don't stay comfortable. One of those. Comfort is a killer of creativity. That's what I've heard also.
Yeah.
But David Cho, he said something like that. Because you just get used to what you have, and then you just stay stagnant. So, brother, do you have any last messages or any thoughts you wanna cover?
No.
How can people contact you? You need to change your IG name, bro. That is so confusing.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah. Well, at this point in time, it's at JELL with 7 E's after it. Jelly.
Why 7 E's? Any special reason?
6 E's was taken.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe I'll change it. I've been trying to think of a new one. I'm on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. Just Jed Lee, JDLE. Yeah.
So, and you're going to be in your 3rd year at Berkeley.
Yeah, 3rd year.
What's your major?
I'm doing society and environment and 3 minors: global poverty practice, food systems, and city planning.
Damn. If people want to run into you on campus, what clubs are you active in? Or spaces?
I'm on the triathlon team.
Oh,
Go Cal Tri. I'm in Students of Color Environmental Collective. Another shout out. Those are the 2 big ones. Oh, I also work for the Student Environmental Resource Center, CERC. Yeah.
Where are you living next year? Are you living on campus?
No, I'm pretty far actually.
Yeah.
Bancroft and San Pablo.
I'm not even sure what that is. That's far?
It's far, yeah.
Are you biking to school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Triathlon. So thanks, brother. Special edition podcast. Now, this is the love episode.